Welcome back. This is the Changing Normal podcast, episode 007. I'm your host, Ben. Yeah, I'm here with Dan and Owen. It's June 16th. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey,
Good.
it's going good. Yeah. Back with the Three Musketeers.
Yeah, it's good to have you back, Owen. Missed you last week.
We did.
Bond. James Bond.
Totally.
We had to get that in the 007 episode somewhere.
Absolutely.
We got some catching up to do, Owen. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, wow. A lot of work. That's really been it. I have worked, I think, almost every single evening. No, I have worked every single evening this week. And then through last weekend. So a little bit, not too much last weekend, but a little bit. So yeah, it's been mostly just work for me, but we did do that Bitcoin presentation. You guys talked a little bit about that last week.
Yeah, we definitely touched on it, but we figured you would probably want to be there for the Three Musketeer discussion.
Well, I don't know if I had much really to add, other than I thought it went really well, and good questions, and it was nice to get a crowd out.
Yeah, but what?
I think
10, 15 people?
Yeah, somewhere between there.
Keeps getting bigger.
I think it's interesting though how every single group have different questions. They have different areas that they tend to focus on. That's not the same as what the other group of people focus on. I don't know if that's because one person asks a question and that sort of brings everyone else to focus on that
Yeah,
point.
I think it kind of starts an organic discussion or takes you down a particular direction.
And I wonder if then people just don't know the other questions they could ask or the other areas they could ask questions about. Or if, I don't know, it's fascinating to me about how people think.
Yeah, because of course there is so many questions, so many ways you could try to delve into it, but I think it's really encouraging to see that we can, in the space of a few hours, get people started to the point where they feel confident actually going out and reading some articles, and we try to start them off with good resources so they don't start with the bad ones.
Exactly.
But yeah. But I think that's a huge help. It's part of the reason we recommend like the Bitcoin Standard book and a few different articles and places to get people started, because that's the main thing. We want people to run with it. So
yeah. Well, it's really just the beginning. People have to then go out and educate themselves like they should with any topic, but we just try to lay a basis and get people started down the right path, and then hopefully they continue their own education after that.
Yeah, because like to some degree, because we go over like the whole sound money thing and lay out that basis, it kind of just allows for the building blocks to take that individual sovereignty and responsibility step, and then learn more and get to where they're comfortable with it.
It seems like a bit of a lame sales pitch, but honestly, I'm so convinced that doing the sound money as the basis for Bitcoin discussion or adoption is the best way to teach people about it.
Absolutely. It is the reason that Bitcoin was engineered in the first place. So
exactly.
I think it does make sense to understand that. And yeah, the why. Otherwise, it's just, there's this cool new thing, and we're going to play with it because other people are playing with it. So you don't really have a foundation. And of course, if you're in it for that, it's easy to get scared out of it and walk away, never come back. And that's definitely not what we want to see.
No, that's right.
Yeah. What about you, Dan?
Well, I've had a busy week. Some stuff I can't talk about. I've got a little bit of turmoil with work things going on, but plowing through that. I did start a new project. I decided to section off the back corner of my basement and dedicate it to cold room storage. So
Oh, right
I'm in
on.
the cleanup phase before I can get to the construction phase.
Are you going to
I
be
think
able
that'll
to?
be good.
Are you going to be able to isolate that heat wise and sort of?
Yeah, that's why the temperature fluctuates too much. Otherwise, I mean, I've got wood furnace in there, so
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna isolate it, put in a lightweight stud wall, and insulate it. So gonna play
And
around
can
with
you?
that. But I think if I
And can
just
you?
isolate it, it's against the concrete wall on one side, and add some venting,
Yeah,
thermostat.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
ask. Can you? Is there a spot there you can get some proper venting in to vent? Have two vents, hot, one high, one low.
Yeah, that's going to be a critical part of it. So I have to
Yeah.
work out the design on that. But
Yeah.
basically, the basement wall is a concrete wall, so I'll have to go up and above that and
Yeah.
out. So
Nice. That'll tie into our main topic a little bit.
Yes.
This week for me has been just prepping for the qualifier in a couple days.
Mm.
So going through some mental resilience exercises while training. I grabbed a couple sticks of wood that were a bit bigger than normal, and by the end of them, I was sucking air pretty good. So I was having some mental arguments with myself. But aside from that, it's been relatively straightforward at work, and just kind of working on the mental gymnastics of telling my body to do what I know it can do when my mind is screaming to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something you got to be able to fight through that wall, don't you?
Yeah. Well, really it's anything, whether it's, doing a cold plunge or things like that, just being able to run it like running a marathon. That's consistently telling your body to just keep going, even when it hurts.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of been what my week has been. Got a little bit of practice on felling trees, knocking down some trees, the proper procedures and methodology for getting them down on the ground in the quickest, cleanest, safest method possible. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing too exciting.
All right.
We got a pretty decent lineup, I guess, on our notes today. We got the crazy crypto corner. Should it be the insane crypto corner?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy couple of weeks, really. Mostly this past week.
Yeah,
but
Bitcoin died again. So there was that. I
died
had one
again,
more to the
yes.
list of obituaries. Yes,
That's right. Bitcoin died for the 5th time.
But definitely a dip in the market. So that is interesting to watch. So we're going to cover, I think, all of our different opinions on that. How low is it going to go?
Yeah, exactly. And then main topic is going to be food sovereignty. And I'm really looking forward to kind of digging in there, seeing what we can bring to light and how we can outdo the old normal and reject the new. So,
all right.
Yeah. Crazy crypto corner. Let's go.
So what do you think? Is it, or do you think we're at the bottom, or do you think it's going to go lower yet?
My amateur guess was that the floor was 32, so I've already had my opinion wiped out.
So you already fell through to the basement then. Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same.
Another month. Go ahead, Owen.
I was just going to say I was kind of thinking the same as far as number wise. So to see it go lower, I don't want to say it was a shock, but it was a bit of a, I don't know. It's exciting. It's one of those things, right? Crypto people, Bitcoin people especially, there's two types of people: the people who get excited when it goes up, the people who get excited when it goes down. And sometimes those people are the same people, because you go, okay, yeah, well, now I'm in the red officially, but I'm going to buy some more anyway. Which
Sale
is what you
price
should
just
do
keeps
anyway.
getting better.
Yeah, exactly. So,
That stacking
Yeah,
becomes even more important.
I definitely think we could see a couple more months of this.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me to see this the rest of the summer. Not constantly going down, but sort of maybe going down some and then a sideways movement with a bunch of volatility day to day.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps rolling about 3,000 Canadian up and down.
Yeah.
3 to 5, I guess.
Yeah.
My phone just keeps blowing up. It's like Bitcoin's up, Bitcoin's down, Bitcoin's up, Bitcoin's down, and all the altcoins are just.
Mm.
Well, I said
Yep.
I said a buy for 25,000 today, Canadian. So we'll see.
That's 25 now.
Yeah, that's right. Now it'll go to like 25.5 and
That's been my experience with Bitcoin.
It is a really interesting psychological exercise to sit on an exchange and try and pick your buy spot. You're like, I don't want to miss it, but I don't want
That's
to
right.
shoot too high.
That's right. Well, I did buy some immediately. I think yesterday at 27 or something like that. So like I bought some and then I put the rest of what I had set aside for a dip on at that buy. If it starts to creep back up or we go by, another 3-4 weeks or something like that, and it's just sort of sideways movement, then I might just cancel that and straight up buy. But I mean, I don't think we've seen what they call the dead cat bounce yet either. So I think we're going to see sort of a false recovery and then a drop again.
I kind of thought that was a few days ago. We saw a little bit of a rally, and I wondered if that was the turning point. But at the bottom of this, we haven't moved past the poor economic forecasts. And I think that's just really going to hang over the markets. So we kind of have to actually get into the recession before people start looking up to the other side.
Yes.
So right now we're kind of still in the denial, or we've gone from full denial to we're still at the half denial that we're going into a bad recession. So we have to get to the acceptance stage before I think the markets hit the bottom.
Yeah, everyone on the radio is like, normally you're in a recession, but you just don't realize you're in a recession yet. Like, oh, no, duh.
Or you love they start pulling out terms like technical recession. Like, well, technically we're in a recession.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
I always think the best advice, and this is what I try to do, is zoom out. So when in doubt, zoom out, right? So and if you look at the charts on the big picture of the last 10 years, we're still we've come so far, and you're also seeing a similar pattern to what we've seen over the last 10, 12 years, is that the low of that particular cycle bottoms at or just above the previous cycle's high. Does that make sense? So sort of the last 4-year cycle, there was like a high of around 20,000 Canadian. And so now we're not down all the way to 20,000, but we're starting to get into that ballpark with this kind of dip. So, but that's been the pattern over the last 12 years.
Is Bitcoin going to recover?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. The long-term outlook
is
still absolutely solid. And of course, you do have to remember we have the Bitcoin reward halvening coming up. And that's only like 2 years away, the next halvening. And that's always precipitated by an increase in the market price of Bitcoin, kind of in anticipation of less Bitcoin flowing into the market, being available for sale. And then I think
we also have to look. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say all of this and where we're at with adoption and how many users are into it, how Lightning Network is taking off. That development is not slowing down. More people are going to get onboarded. We're going to have more payment processing connecting really easily to Lightning. And so I think that's going to make the next bull run even bigger than the last one. So
Yeah, we
when it
passed the
takes off, I think
4,000.
it's really going to take off.
We passed
But
the
that might be a
4,000
year
on
away.
Lightning. Right.
4,000 nodes.
No, 4,000 Bitcoin stored within the Lightning network.
Right.
Yeah.
So and I think the interesting thing to remember in all of this is that the majority of people who are, let's say, just big players in the crypto world, in Bitcoin specifically, don't see it from the sound money perspective. They see it from a stock. It's just a speculative stock perspective, and they're trying to make fiat off of it. They're not trying to hold Bitcoin for the long term. They're trying to make fiat, and so they're when things get rocky, they go, well, this is risky, so I'll sell it, because they're thinking very short term. So I think we have to remember that's in large part why Bitcoin follows the stock, because it's not just Bitcoin that's down. It's not just crypto that's down. Everything is down,
Except gas prices.
Except gas prices.
Oh my man. I called the RCMP. I said, I've been robbed. And they said, who did it? Pump number 6. Oh man. But I saw MicroStrategy. So Michael Saylor's business, he, of course, with this massive plunge, everyone's like, holy crap, they have all the reserve, the majority of the reserves in Bitcoin. And they're like, man, when are they going to start selling Bitcoin? And he said, we can handle a Bitcoin drop to like below $4,000 USD.
Wow.
And they're like, well, how does that work with your loan? And he was talking about how it's got something to do with the fact that they can just their loan for however many $1 million isn't all of the Bitcoin that they hold. So they can just add more Bitcoin to back the loan until it, apparently it's like $4,000 or $5,000 US before they would have to liquidate any. Which
that's
is
pretty
crazy.
impressive. That's impressive.
Yep. And we'll see if you have enough reserves, you can come out ahead big time in situations like these. So it's all about, have you held enough back to get yourself through? And he doesn't strike me as the sort of person that wouldn't have made this calculation.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a super thoughtful and calculated fella. What does this teach us in regards to like self-custody as far as Bitcoin? Can we tie
well, I think that's another big lesson coming out of this, because I've heard so many stories of people saying, I lost all my Bitcoin. And everyone's like, what do you mean? And like, oh, I had it on Celsius, or one of these other apps or DeFi apps or whatever. And then there's a downturn, Celsius, or these, I don't want to pick on Celsius, but they're the most notable one in the news. Basically was like, so we're halting all withdrawals because we kind of over leveraged or whatever, and we're not going to be solvent. It's like, oh, you did what the legacy system does.
Fractional reserves. Yeah.
So
not enough cash in the till.
That, I think, is probably a wake-up call for a lot of people. And if it doesn't, the ones it doesn't scare away and sour, will definitely become hardcore self-custody people in the future.
Yep. Well, it's also, I think, assuring that in the long run, this decentralized finance is going to be truly decentralized in structures such as smart contracts, because every time there's people getting burned by trusted third-party systems, it's more pressure to have an alternative to that. So it's Bitcoin in a trusted third-party system is sort of a half-hearted attempt to move away from the legacy system.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be interesting to see where multi-sig wallets and things like that go someday, and if that allows an actual self-custody option, but still allow utilization of
Mm.
your Bitcoin for more than just holding.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That part of individual sovereignty is, well, I mean, I will continue saying it. It's one of the best things I love about Bitcoin, the individual responsibility and sovereignty it brings with it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, speaking of sovereignty, do we want to start digging into food sovereignty? No pun intended there.
Food, meat.
Well, we've kind of covered. We covered hunting, fishing, trapping, at least in regards to survival.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're more looking at gardening, more self-sufficiency in regards to food in a I don't want to say rebellion right off the bat, but I mean, we can get there.
We don't want to scare people away too quick. Well, I think this topic is a bit of a zoom out. So we're not going to like get into here's how you plant your potatoes, kind of discussion. This episode, we could do that another episode. I think we should just talk about why is food sovereignty important? What is food sovereignty? First of all, it's not, making a hamburger king. Well, that would be pretty cool. But, what is food sovereignty? Start with that.
Yeah, and how we look at food. Because I think this is something where
I look at it with my eyes.
Most people in the world probably have more of an attachment to timeless wisdom around sourcing their food and so on, and probably have a better understanding of where their food comes from. We live in a culture where people have no idea where their food comes from, and they would have no backup plan if they can't simply walk into the store and walk out with some sort of food-like item. So,
yeah, food-like item. That's a good way of explaining half of a lot of what comes from the grocery store.
As long as you get your storm chips, you're all good.
So do you want to hear what an actual definition of food sovereignty is?
Yes, let it run.
It is different than how I would describe it.
Definition of terms is very important.
This is how Food Secure Canada and Wikipedia both define it. The right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems.
To find or define? Define. And their right to define. Yeah. Okay, I think their definition of sovereignty is a little different than mine.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's still an implication of a reliance on the centralized system for that food.
Well, I mean, I guess the right to define their own food and agricultural systems, for me, that could be self-production. Sure. I could, define my agricultural system as self-production, producing my own.
Yeah, but that bit makes sense. I mean, the part of forging your own destiny, but the lead off with the right to food, that implies there's some central establishment that has the responsibility to hand it over to you. And so that implies reliance, which is the opposite of sovereignty.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And my other comment was culturally appropriate food. So I have a right to complain if someone tries to feed me sushi. I take it. that seems culturally inappropriate to me.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
And I would even view the idea of sovereignty when it comes to food as being independent of any other governance or oversight, if you want to put it that way. Like you think of a sovereign, like a king, right? They're the highest say in the land. They have the final say. There's nobody above them. And so if we're trying to accomplish food sovereignty, we're really trying to accomplish having the final say in what we eat, but also how we produce it and where it comes from.
Mhm.
Because there's no dependence there on anything over you.
So when like when we look at that, is that 100% self-sufficiency or self-sovereignty? Like,
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you look back at like the contrast between a civilization that might have been nomadic or maybe hunter-gatherer type, you saw that everyone within that people group would have had like interwoven responsibilities and different ways they were supporting the whole group. But then contrasting that with the empire state and how it centralizes the food, you see the slaves or servants working to produce grain, which the lords and nobles could then store away for many years in central granaries. And that ultimately leads to more reliance on that central power structure that they control the land, they control the production, and then they hold all the resources that are basically the battery for when bad times come. So you end up having to look to a handout instead of looking to your own community.
Mm-hmm. So like when I hear you explain it like that, I think of like a wheel with spokes and how each spoke plays a integral part in maintaining the wheel's integrity and structure. That's what it brings to my mind. So is it possible to reach 100% self-sufficiency? Probably not, but
at the individual level,
yeah, at the individual
as
level
an individual,
is what I'm
no. I mean, I guess you could build up a 50-year supply of MREs and call yourself 100% self-sufficient. I don't think that's a good lifestyle.
I mean, you can achieve different levels of self-sufficiency in different areas as well. So you might be more self-sufficient in your food than maybe your medical supplies or something like that. So I don't think 100% self-sufficiency is possible. I think what you shoot for is 100% self-reliance. Because there's a difference between self-reliance and self-sufficiency. I might not be able to provide 100% of my physical needs, on my property, but I can be 100% self-reliant on getting what I need through, community formation of, connections with other people who maybe do produce what I can't,
right.
Things like that. So while there is a slight dependence on those other people to provide, I'm actually being self-reliant in that I'm very, very aware of what I can't provide and finding the connections. And so that if there is a breakdown in the food chain, I have other options, than just going to the store.
And all those connections you mentioned, that isn't connections with one central place or distribution point. So basically, I mean, we talk about distributed networks with Bitcoin, and it's similar when you talk about this method of self-reliance. You basically have a distributed network. You're connected to many different people, and there's mutual exchange of goods and services, and you have a supportive structure that even if it loses some of the nodes, I guess, in that network, it doesn't self-destruct. There's no one weak link where everything blows up if it breaks.
Which is what we have now. I mean, that's what we have now is trucks go down for 3 days and there's no food in the grocery stores. At any given time, I think they say at any given time we have 3 days worth of food.
My storm chip aisle was completely bare.
Yeah, people don't realize it. all it takes is a disruption in the DEF supply, even not even just diesel, but now that our trucks are reliant on DEF to run, it just takes a small disruption to that supply, and we have no food on the shelves.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so bringing in the decentralized or distributed the Bitcoin network analogy was a good one, and how that I mean, not only serves as a good analogy, but it can also lend itself to facilitating an ease of the building of that system when utilizing Bitcoin as a currency within said network, right? Like, because initially when thinking about the self-reliance, I guess we're kind of getting away from food sovereignty a little bit, but initially I think of a barter system, right? Like chickens for pigs or whatever. But when you're able to utilize a currency, makes it that much sleeker and more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. And that all ties into that sort of self-reliance, in that you've put systems in place to give yourself buffer so that if plan A doesn't work, plan B or C will work.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's all part of it for sure. I think that the idea of food production and food sovereignty, getting back to why it's important, it's pretty much top of the list, with the exception maybe of water. But I think where we are in this country, water is much less of an issue because we have so much clean water that I don't think we think of it in the same light as some other parts of the world, where water may actually be over food even as priority. But here, I think food actually becomes priority in a lot of ways because we have an environment where we have, 6 to 8 months of temperatures that you're not growing anything in.
Yeah, your window is greatly.
So the window is much shorter to get the food you need to get through the rest of the year. And so food production, I think, starts to take precedent over some of the other areas of preparation that you may require. But I think it's also very important because it's the one area that government and authoritarian, characters will start to lean on to control a population. So, we all know about gun control and, all these sorts of things, but they'll lean on people's food because that's the one thing they can make them comply on. If they can't eat, they'll do almost anything they have to get food.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got to have it. And so I think having that food sovereignty, having that ability to say, I don't need the system to some degree, whether it's 100% or 50% or whatever, you then create that distance from the system and an independence from the system, that now you are not as influenced by those who would desire to control you using that system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that made me reflect on, I guess you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you have to make a trade-off in order to get food to survive, where you have to make a decision to give up things you normally wouldn't.
It makes me think of when some governments were considering banning certain people from the grocery stores within the last 2 years, and some of the measures that they took in under the guise of public health. And it's funny how the most outcry of any of the measures was when they're like, oh, we're going to restrict who can go in to get food out of a grocery store.
Exactly.
And anyway, it's it's just mind boggling. That's kind of where it went. And that, again, that, well, oh, we're just going to let everything just kind of roll over top of us. But, oh, wait, nope. Grocery store. Nope. We need that. we really need that. But anyway, yeah, that's,
So in that sense, in that vein of having your own food, being able to produce your own food gives you a what's the word? I just had it a second ago. Boy, I hate that. You have the word right there, and it's like the perfect word, and then it's gone.
Gives
when
you
you
options, basically.
When it gives you that option,
Yeah.
that insulation, the independence from a dependent system that most of the world depends on. When you have that, you're in many ways rebelling against the system because you no longer need that system. And we've got, written in the show notes here, but we were chatting the other day I can't remember who said it, what the quote is from, but it's all over the internet. So who knows who actually gets credit for defining it. But it's this idea that the ultimate act of rebellion is to feed yourself. Because in doing so, you're saying to whatever governing body, I don't need you and your supply lines to live. And at the end of the day, as long as a person can live, you can get by, right?
Yeah. If they're willing to do that, if they're willing to cut themselves off from what the government can supply them, then they don't have a need to accept whatever the government says they must.
That's right.
I think moving on from that, besides the central authority potentially disrupting your supply chain, natural disasters or other things can leave you in a pinch as well. It doesn't have to be a planned pressure. It could be something totally unexpected, and all of a sudden the trucks aren't rolling again. Nobody wanted it that way, but sometimes you have to deal with those scenarios.
I've seen driving with work, I've seen numerous fields that have, with the relatively large amount of rain that we've received here in the last couple of weeks, I've seen massive sections of fields completely washed away by the it's just something as simple as that will throw a little monkey wrench in the system.
Last fall, we definitely saw it with the computer chip shortage, among other essential parts. There were several combines in this area sitting down and out for lack of one of the computer components that they need to operate. And it's kind of devastating because there's a limited number of these pieces of equipment. They cover a lot of ground each, and when you have no backup plan to that, and it's like, oh, there's a 2-month delay on these parts. The situation turns bad.
Just
really
put
quickly.
that corn and wheat on hold. They'll be good for another 2 months. We'll harvest that in December.
Isn't that what winter wheat is for?
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, there's just a lot. It brings to mind the saying that we toss around, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Backups to backups. But yeah, there's a lot of, I guess in my mind, there's a lot of dangers being fully dependent on said supply chain, regardless of whether that's just food or whatnot. Being able to have those avenues of individual responsibility and sovereignty to go and supply yourself with food, or even employment, being self-employed versus there's a lot of different avenues that that lend itself to contemplation when I start thinking about sovereignty as far as food goes. It just, my mind starts going. And it's like, oh yeah, well, maybe you should look at this avenue or this area of your life to, well, because it's just normal to be, well, payday's here, gotta go get groceries. This is budget. So what we got to get. Um,
Another part that goes with this, and of course, I mean, there's so many rabbit trails. Food is such a massive, massive topic, and we're going to get into in the future shows. We're going to get into all kinds of little more specific areas, I think. But the idea of cooking and using raw materials to create meals, I think by and large is a lost art in society. Like I know for the three of us, we all come from backgrounds where you sit and you eat steak and potatoes or whatever the meal is, and it's the raw materials taken and created into a meal. But I think there's a large portion of society that doesn't know how to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's the normal, is not knowing or not having the ability. I mean, the internet's a wealth of resources. It's not hard. So do we then say that we have a lazy society that doesn't want to do that? Because we have a thriving fast food and restaurant business or economy, I guess.
Yep. The trend of an unwillingness to work with, even like raw produce, it's like potatoes or sweet potatoes, whatever, things that are, high calorie foods, very valuable. And around here, potatoes are super cheap. But how many people want a processed food that they can chuck in the microwave and will turn up their noses at good produce? It is alarming to see that. Yeah, it is an apathy, a laziness even.
It definitely takes an introspective look at yourself and where you're coming at where you're coming from as far as what you're looking at in regards to food and the amount of work you're willing to put in to get to where you need to be in regards to self-reliance, self-sufficiency, individual responsibility. Because I know we run into it all the time with the Bitcoin stuff. I mean, we keep bringing it up. We're eventually just going to turn into a Bitcoin podcast. I can see it right now. This is where Bitcoin fits in with this, and this is where Bitcoin can fix this. But
Bitcoin fixes the world, man.
It's not going to grow your garden for you. So got to have those practical skills.
But if you have a long time horizon, if you have a long time view of time, you actually, I think Bitcoin fixes in a lot of people's minds how they even think about everything else in their life and in the world, not just money.
If it changed the economic system.
Yeah, but I think I think even in people's if they learn about Bitcoin, they learn about sound money. I think the same mindsets that change in people's heads then applies to other things as well, so that they're not just they're having a long or short. They're changing from short time preference to long time preference.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with. That's actually a really important issue of whether or not you only care about what you have in the moment.
That's right.
Short time preference versus investing in the future and in being prepared. So I think that's actually a good point, that once you kind of set yourself up with that longer time horizon in one area, you're likely going to start applying it to different areas of your life as well. It's hard to isolate that to a single area.
Yes, that's right.
Like Jordan Peterson says, you want to change the world, clean your room. You got you got to start somewhere. And I know for me, it's the best example that I have is physical fitness. When I'm being active and making sure I'm fueling my body in the right ways, it not only lends itself to more energy, it lends itself to a better mental state, which then allows me to process problems and calculate just events through the day, through the week, through the month, planning. My mood's better. Interactions with people in my life is better. It's like the cascading, like the ripple effect, I guess is what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to get at through all that rambling. It's the ripple effect, which
I didn't think you bought any Ripple. I'm very confused.
Oh, actually, I did. I did. I bought some Ripple. Sold it at a loss. And with, even with the aims of this podcast to reject the new normal, outdo the old normal, like, that's a really daunting task when you think about all of the things and facets of that aim and that goal. But when you just boil it down to something as simple as start a garden, just be a little bit of a rebel, buy 1,000 Satoshis, just get up in the morning when your alarm goes off and have a drink of water and just sit and think, pray or do some push, like just little things. And then that starts pushing itself into other areas of your life. I can speak from personal experience on that one, but I mean, I'm not going to say that is 100% the fix, but that's definitely where my brain goes. And I really like it when, or I guess because my brain is starting to switch to a longer time, like a lower time preference, like a longer time horizon. I can definitely, like, even just in how I look at Bitcoin and what I'm thinking of utilizing Bitcoin for, now it's, well, I'm going to figure out how to utilize it for my son. And I mean, we hear it all the time in mainstream media, especially in regards to climate change. What kind of world are we leaving for our children or our grandchildren? Well, I don't know. You keep making that money printer go brrr.
Yeah.
Not much. Yeah, I was pretty pumped to see the food sovereignty topic come up.
Yep. Now there's some good stuff, Ben. Choosing to take actions in your life that produce visible results. That's really impactful because you're going to keep adding another action to that and another action. And then your life becomes totally different than what it would have been if you didn't take those actions. If you, I guess, had an angry outlook at the world and wanted someone else to fix it. If you identify a problem that you can't affect as the problem and you need somebody else to come fix that for you. Yeah, I think this comes down to the goal of the podcast.
Very much.
Yeah. Well, what say ye about some wins and losses?
Let's do it.
Win first or loss first?
I usually save the best stuff for last. That's always been my preference.
It's true. It's true. The longer time preference does lend itself to that. I guess we're recording this on Thursday. So yesterday, the Fed announced a 3/4 interest rate hike. So, in so far as implications, probably going to see another sale increase on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that now.
But,
well, this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand, that the Fed has worked themselves into this corner with the crazy printing. They managed that crazy printing of money, the quote unquote quantitative easing. They managed that by lowering interest rates. The problem was they got to the point of having low or like zero or negative interest rates, and they had nowhere else to go. And so now that's where we are right now, is in this situation where now they can't fight the inflation by lowering interest rates. So they have to, so as inflation starts to go up, now they have to raise interest rates to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the lower interest rates are kind of kicking the can down the road. You see economic turbulence, and you say, we'll make cheap money available for everyone. It'll keep the economy going. But the productivity is not keeping up, and that's what the basis of your economy is. Your productivity's been damaged, and trying to smooth things over by giving people free money only ends up in this situation we're in, is higher inflation. And then they've got not much of a plan. They can increase the interest rates again, give out less free money to try and slow down spending and curb inflation, but then you have to accept that you're actually going into a recession.
Technical recession.
Only technically. We're all good here.
Do you think this is the last one, or do you think there's any more coming? Because I know they had talked about having them in May and June, rate hikes. But I don't know if they're going to have more.
This is an experiment. The central banking industry is running an experiment never tried before on how far they can push the debt easy money system. And so no one actually knows, since this has never been done before, how far they can push it.
My question was going to be, if they raised interest rates to the point of stopping inflation, how scary would that be?
Interest rates are that high, the housing market's going to turn around pretty quickly because people won't be able to afford their mortgages anymore.
It's going to turn around long before then. I mean, the number of people around here that bought highly inflated priced homes because of the lack of supply, and then and I'm sure they didn't buy with a comfortable room for error. You know, the bank said, hey, you can afford a $300,000 house. Yep. And so they bought a $300,000 house.
So hopefully they're locked in for a decent period of time at a fixed interest rate. Or
that's right. I think it's going to be scary how many people are I think we're going to see a massive bust in the housing market. At least, I mean, it may not be the same in every area of the United States and Canada. Obviously, it's a big place, so there's a lot of different, kind of microeconomies going on.
Yeah. Well, we saw that in 2008. Some places like Detroit got absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
And you're going to see people simply abandoning those areas that are turning sharply downwards. And that does mean that the market will be held at the current price range for those areas people are still moving into, though. So areas that are popular, those might not see the crash, but there are going to be a lot of areas that you'll see that economic downturn goes much deeper than a mere recession. So
I was listening to one guy today who said, I think it was on a Bitcoin Magazine podcast. Anyway, he basically says he thinks they're going to hold out till March of next year before they start to print money again. He said Q4 is going to make Q3 look like pennies.
Oh boy.
So yeah. I'm not super familiar with the guy, but he's been right. I kind of checked his Twitter out and kind of did a little back reading, and he's been right on an awful lot of stuff. And he's like a money hedge fund manager. That's what he does for a living. So he knows the markets really well, but he's also a Bitcoin person. So that's the perspective he's viewing it from.
Is that Foss? Greg Foss?
Yeah, it might be. I'm not sure if that's who it was or not. I can't remember the name. I'd have to look it up.
He's quite a guy. I listened to was it on What is Money with Robert Breedlove? That was quite
Okay.
a podcast episode, those guys. So in our win column, we've got the suspension of the jab mandates in Canada. So outgoing.
Yeah, partial win, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I
Although
guess.
it's a bit like finding your missing Christmas present in Easter, but it's like, oh, that's where that was. Better late than never, I guess.
Yeah,
there wasn't any perishables in that package.
The headlines, I think, so many of these headlines are so deceiving. You know, they don't really tell the whole story. They have to fit it in headlines, so they're like, you know, COVID restrictions lifted, but you find out that only like half the restrictions are lifted.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think might be the case here. There's still plenty of stuff that you can't do without the vaccine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a
So
step in the right direction.
yeah, a few key things. They're stopping their unconstitutional infringement on travel within the country.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's a bonus. The vaccine mandate for federal workers, that's being suspended, which is a different word than eliminated, as far as I can recall.
That's right. Well, we might want to bring it back in the fall when everyone has a cold.
Right, when school starts up again.
Yeah.
So those were the key points. They're not changing their rules on unvaccinated travelers coming into Canada. If you are someone who has status in Canada and has the right to return, they're still requiring quarantine. And if you're a foreign national and unvaccinated, you still can't come into the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that'll
and that was, I mean, my understanding was that was mostly precipitated by the Liberal like MPs and caucus, was it not? There was so much pressure, I suspect, from the
caucus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And probably a lot of that political pressure is coming from the transport sector, and even people simply mad about the delays at Pearson Airport in Toronto, because suspend people's rights and they'll probably ignore it, but make them wait in line 10 hours and they get mad.
That's right.
It's strenuous stuff, standing on your feet for 10 hours. Oh, man.
I mean, yeah, talk about time preferences.
Oh, no. Oh, man. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening.
We should be paying them to listen. That's maybe our problem. Send us a place that we can donate to you to listen to our show.
Oh, my Lanta. Send us an email, changingnormal@protonmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter at changing_normal. If you actually did find some value in this podcast, we accept donations via Lightning Network at the Lightning URL, changingnormal@fountain.fm. We're up on YouTube, iTunes, Google Podcasts, still working on Spotify. They don't like us for some reason, but that's all right. They've got Rogan on there. We'll be there eventually.
They hate food. Spotify hates food. No, but really, folks, like, if you listen somewhere or you watch somewhere, like and subscribe, all that sort of stuff that helps all the algorithm foolishness. And it gives me warm and fuzzies when I sit and see that we have another subscriber. Yeah, all 12 of them.
To quote John Cooper from Cooper Stuff, gives me the happies. But anyway, thanks for listening, folks. Remember, create your own new normal every day.